Boy LOG coming to you live from Where There's Smoke. Uh, so so last week we had a good episode with Tyler on, and I think we're gonna do an episode tomorrow with another guest. So tune in tomorrow. We'll drop the episode probably Sunday or Monday, but stay tuned for that. And but tonight I just wanted to get into a few topics. If you saw the title, then you kind of know what's up. But it's Bronny declaring for the draft and kind of LeBron giving his thoughts on that. Um, and then we're gonna go over a little bit of the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight, give our thoughts on that, how legitimate it is, and then I kind of want to compare the two of the Bronny thing and the Jake Paul and Tyson fight, as in like sports, and like we know sports is entertainment, but I just kind of want to talk about that more and how it's evolving in today's time and kind of what we think about that. And then the final thing is kind of totally different. We'll see if we get to it because it is kind of an in-depth thing, and I don't know how many people are really tuned into this, but it's kind of one of the more popular conspiracies I've seen on YouTube over the past, like I'd say, year or two, and it has to do with the people in Israel sacrificing a red heifer in a very particular way, and it has to do with them bringing forth who they see as the Messiah, because many Jewish people and Israelites reject reject Jesus as the Messiah. So people that are Jewish that reject Jesus as the Messiah, there are a portion of those people who are carrying out this red heifer thing apparently, in hopes to bring forth who they think is the Messiah. So it's a whole conspiracy theory, but if we have time and if I think people show interest, then we'll get into that. And because it is kind of in depth, but there's a couple of podcasts that have covered it, so maybe I was gonna pick apart their audio, kind of see what y'all have to say about it. So that's kind of the topics for today. Uh, I know March Madness is really hot, but I just have not paid attention to it, and I almost wanted to pose the question, maybe kind of a side note, if people want to give their opinion. Do y'all think this year, and I don't think it's going to take over forever this way, but maybe just this year, do you think the women's tournament is hotter than the men's? It's almost like there's more big names in the women's tournament that I've seen, and people are kind of tuning into that more. I could be wrong. I know Kaylin Clark and that other chick play tonight that plays for UConn. I was kind of wanting to watch it, but I think it'll be on while I'm streaming. But I know there's been a lot of hype behind the women's tournament this year. So what do y'all kind of thoughts on that? What do you have to say about that? I would like to know who has gambled on what. Like if people are betting more on women's now, or if they're still kind of betting the same on men's. But as always, I'm gonna check the audio, video settings, kind of see if anyone in the chat has any recommendations on improvements real quick, and then kind of jump into the topics. So give me a second, y'all. Title, then you kind of know what's up. But it's all right. So everything looks to be good and copacetic. Let's see. The first thing I wanted to jump into was okay. This is also like another side note. I know I mentioned the kind of the NCAA thing. Threw that out there to see if anyone had any quick thoughts on that. But another thing that I kind of wanted to do that was kind of light before I get into the other topics, the headliners for the show tonight, was kind of give my opinion on The Walking Dead. And I don't know who really has interest in that show or anything, but that's just a series that I've watched recently that I felt like I was just going to give a kind of a brief my feelings and thoughts over the whole thing. And I'm talking specifically about Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live, which is a story with the only main characters from the show that it has in it are Rick and Michonne, and it was kind of framed up to be like a love story. The closer it got to releasing, the more that I guess they kind of let that be known. But in the beginning, when Rick initially left the main Walking Dead show, we always were told that he was going to come back. At first, they said it was going to be a movie. Then they changed it to a series, and then they said Michonne was going to be a part of it. And then, the closer it got, I guess I don't know if it was known before it was put out or not, but once it was put out, it was made to be known that it was like a love story between Rick and Michonne, which some episodes definitely had that feel, and it kind of took away from it for me because I don't care. I understand that's part of The Walking Dead a little bit, but I don't watch The Walking Dead for love stories. So if it's here and there, fine. But like to have one or two whole episodes dedicated to it, more or less, is kind of missed the mark for me, just personally. But it was good to see Rick back in action and get like a little closure on his character. So if we never see him again, at least we saw this. He got back with Michonne, and he got back with his kids. So that was good. I feel like the odd episodes, 1, 3, 5, and then maybe even 6 were good. But the two that focused on like the one that focused on Michonne and like her little story, episode 2, which I saw that episode first on accident. I saw episodes 1 and 2 out of order, but like episode 2 was like and then episode 4 where they was just Rick and Michonne lovey 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 the whole time. I was like I mean, some people loved it, but it just wasn't for me, and it wasn't like terrible, but for I want action and zombies and Walking Dead and like, oh, they did that little plot twist that was like obvious, but it still got me. Like I want, you know, I did think the whole thing overall was not bad. I felt like episode 6 was super rushed, and the thing overall was rushed. That kind of goes into people saying that it was going to be a Rick movie, or Gimple, I guess the guy who's like in charge of show running and whatnot, had said that it was going to be a Rick movie, and then they changed it to a series. And I can kind of see that with like the different characters and like the way they progress storylines, and maybe they changed things once they knew it was going to be a series. But you can definitely see like with the shortness of it and the way certain things played out, like just how they had several like mini villains that were taken out at certain points, kind of made it seem like a movie type deal. Um, and I don't know. Overall, it was good. We saw Jadis finally die. Uh, I think I would have liked to seen some kind of resolution where the big bad of the season got away, maybe General Beale, because he like there was no battle, like there was no hot intense scenes with him. Pause. Um, but like basically there was no battles or situations where he or the main character were at risk, one or the other. There was one situation where that happened and he died. So it was kind of like, I wish he would have been more of a threat, and maybe they would have even saved him for like down the road of a second season or the villain of another show. Like maybe all his forces got destroyed, but he barely got away, and it's like, oh, it's unrealistic, but it's like, oh, he lived to see another day, and like maybe because another thing that kind of ties into what I've heard is that it's going to take many years for them to produce a sequel or another show that picks up with these two characters. So that would have been perfect if they had saved Beale for down the road as a villain. But I think I'm looking at my notes to see if I missed anything that I want to talk about. Um, yeah, yeah, everyone. This was definitely fanfare, is what I'm hearing, and it definitely seems like it kind of. And I said it was nice as a fan to see Rick, get some closure and da da da. Not just leave it open ended with him just out there. Get back to his family and community and whatnot. But a lot of people are also obviously wanting to see him reunite with other big characters like Daryl, Negan, Maggie, Father Gabriel, whoever. Maybe even Aaron is a big one that I like. Um, and also, I want to just talk about, they said it would be like several years for them to make another season because I guess they haven't even started writing or filming or anything. And it's like, they really need to like, I understand that it's not the original Walking Dead where they have like they know they're going to be season after season. So as soon as they're just like in a continuous schedule, so it makes it coming out much nicer. And they're filming year round, so it comes out every year. But and now they're more of like write it, film it, get done, see how it reacts, and then start again. It's like y'all need to kind of speed up the process. Like I understand that it's like a little different, and they're playing around with like different shows versus um, just one show and all this, and they wanted to get that complete story of Rick and Michonne and get Rick back in and whatever, and maybe now they're gonna even have another show with Rick and other characters, but it's like at some point y'all need to be writing. Like there would have been no problem with writing what was gonna happen next while y'all were doing this. You don't have to wait till you're done. Like speed up the process. In other words, is what I'm trying to say. Um, I should not, as a fan of Walking Dead, I should not have to. This the ones who live just ended. It's the beginning of April. I should not of 2024. I should not have to wait till 2026 or 2 or 3 years to watch what happens next. These actors are getting old. I'm getting old. I'm losing interest on some level if the story is not good and juicy. Uh, and like I'm not gonna care about this shit forever, and neither is everyone else. Like, and I'm a pretty dedicated fan to The Walking Dead, I would say. So it's just like let's speed up the story and like not speed it up, don't rush it like y'all did with this, but like let's speed up the writing and have shit prepared. That way we don't have to wait. Like y'all sped up this season, and then we're gonna have to wait 3 years for another one. No good. Let's get the writing more. I don't know if the writing strike affected that. I heard Denai Guerrera, who plays Michonne on The Walking Dead, who is one of the two main characters of this show, if you don't know, I heard she wrote one, if not more than one episode. So I don't care. I don't have a problem with that. Um, I don't know if that plays into what the hell's going on, or if because they don't have writers, she got the opportunity. That's fine. Do what you got to do, but get this shit out in a timely manner. It's kind of my little rant on that. Because I felt like they waited so long to bring Rick back. A lot of people are done with The Walking Dead. Like they don't give a fuck anymore. I'm not like that, but I could be by the time they come out with the next shit. So like, you know, I am watching Dead City though. While that seems to be coming out, but let's see, that's already been a while since that's been released. So if that isn't, it's like these things need to be decide how many seasons. If you do like, I don't know. I guess they wanted to have season done one and see how it's reacting. But as soon as people react to 1 or 2 or 3 episodes favorably, man, start writing that next season. And then once you renew for a season 2, you really got to figure out start writing as if it's going to have 5 or 6 seasons, and then if it doesn't you get cut short, but at least have a game plan. That way you can start getting some momentum and putting out a season every year, because if not, I feel like it's hard to really get a fan base and a momentum and people really caring about your show. So anyway, that's my rant on The Walking Dead and kind of my thoughts overall on this the series, The Ones Who Live, which was Rick and Michonne. I liked it overall. Thought it was a bit rushed. uh they brought Gabriel in for one episode that was like a flashback, so it wasn't like he was part of the real thing that was going on. I didn't really care about that as much. Um, we'll see. I feel like this show was good, but I feel like I honestly liked Dead City, which was the Negan and Maggie show, and Daryl Dixon. I guess it's just the show's just called Daryl Dixon, which is about him going to France. I like those shows better than The Ones Who Live because they didn't seem as rushed, and I'm getting a second season. And because the first season played out the way it did to dictate that. So I always gonna want more content, and I feel like the shows were genuinely better. Maybe because they weren't like a love story, which I'm not really in favor of. But overall, I did like it, but I like the other ones a little better, I would have to say. And I don't know, it was good though. Maybe like I said, I'm just disappointed we're not getting a second season so far. So anyway, all right, I spent enough time on that. So now I'm gonna get on to the Bronny thing. I feel like about a month ago I did a live stream covering LeBron and Bronny and them facing criticism, and Bronny kind of standing up for his son, as he should. And now they're back in the news again. It's easy to keep LeBron in the news. He's one of the big pets of the show. So um, they're saying on Undisputed that like LeBron obviously getting into the end of his career, but they're saying he really probably only has, he said something in the headlines like, "Oh, I'm getting near the end. Only have a few years left." So they're just saying maybe him pushing in that way is affecting Bronny to go ahead and declare for the draft after his first year at college. Um, if you don't know, Bronny is LeBron James' son. LeBron James Jr. goes by Bronny. Uh, he played 1 year of college ball at USC. I have his stats here. He averaged 4.8 points, 2.8 boards, and 2.1 assists. And then his last year at high school, he averaged 14 points, 2.9 assists, and 1.8 steals. So not like the most wowing stats. Um, what was I gonna say? Um, who knows what conversations are being had with him and LeBron like behind the scenes, and what the influence is like as far as like draft, don't stay in school, etc. Um, I do know that it's a big goal of LeBron's, like play with his son and whatnot. So, um, you know, um, we'll see if he can get in the NBA and really make an impact and have good numbers, and what people see as like success and failure, and if he even if he becomes a decent player for several years, if that quite lives up to if he meets people's expectations, and everyone's gonna have different ones, but they're gonna be high regardless. So, um, I guess we can watch a little clip of the sports heads talking about it real quick. Uh, I think the first video I actually have is just a general news video that I haven't seen yet. So let's take a look at that. Let me hook the headphones up real quick. Give me a second. All right, let's see what these people got to say.
Well, I don't know where it came from, but at the end of the day, Bronny's his own man. He has some tough decisions to make. Yeah. And when he's ready to make those decisions, he'll let us all know. But as his family, we'll support whatever he does.
And that decision has been made. Breaking news coming from basketball. USC freshman Bronny James has declared for the NBA draft. That's per multiple reports and via his own Instagram. The eldest son of LeBron James, Bronny, also intends to maintain his college eligibility.
Fair use, fair use. Yeah, I heard this. I heard them saying this on Undisputed as well, that he entered the something portal, whatever they call it, where he can go to another team. So he's open ended at this point, where he can go to another team, or like college team, probably like a smaller school, or he can see if he can get drafted.
And will put his name into the transfer portal. Bronny averaged 4.8 points as a freshman at USC after missing the early part of the season because of a heart condition. It's also a period of change at USC because the school has introduced their new head coach, Eric Musselman, later on this afternoon. Here is the post from Bronny that he put out on.
All right. Here was his little announcement. Let's see what else they.
Eligible. We now bring in what happened.
Well, to commit to take, been very clear that he intends to play with his son.
Here's some of his stats. I don't know. Let me move myself, or just make it like that so y'all can see it real quick. Some of his stats. I think I read them off a minute ago, but
And that does not mean that he wants his son on a G League affiliate. It means he wants to be day-to-day with his son. So if the Lakers commit to that,
his field goal percentage is kind of low. 37% from 2, 27 from 3 percentage. We'll see what he's projected to go. Come probably. Let me look up when the draft is. The 2024 NBA draft will be held June 26th through 27th. So we got about 3 months. So we'll probably see, I'd say, about halfway between here and there, kind of what he's projected to go. And but we'll see. The people I listen to on Undisputed, which I'll pull up here in a minute, Skip and his goons were saying even if he goes undrafted, likely the Lakers will pick him up, to satisfy LeBron in a very similar way that the Bucks have what's his name? Thanasis Antetokounmpo to satisfy Giannis. So you know how it goes. I think I'm pretty much done with this video. Give me a second before we react to this next one real quick. All right, I'm back. Sorry for the wait.
Breaking news into First Take. USC freshman guard Bronny James will enter the 2024 NBA draft while maintaining his college eligibility and will also enter the transfer portal. He said Friday, as in today, on Instagram. James had been expected to have a major impact on USC after earning McDonald's All-American honors in high school, but a July cardiac arrest episode and a procedure to treat a congenital heart defect sidelined him for 5 months and severely impacted his productivity as a freshman at USC, averaging 4.8 points, 2.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists, and 19 minutes a game. USC coach Andy Enfield recently left for SMU, and the Trojans hired Arkansas's Eric Musselman. This was on Thursday. Okay, Stephen A., Big Perk. Interesting.
Big
Perk, I'll start with
Perk.
you. What's your reaction to Bronny James leaving?
Why not? Why not? You should. It's the right move. I mean, when you look at Bronny, I always said that I don't believe Bronny is built for college. I think he will be a hell of a pro. I'm not saying that he's going to be his dad. I'm not saying that he's going to have an all-star caliber career far as a pro, but he will have a great pro career. And when you think about in the new day, like, he's been around pros all his life. Hell, his dad is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, basketball player to ever touch foot on the basketball court. So I actually love this from Bronny James entering the draft, testing the waters, working out in front of NBA scouts and GMs to showcase what.
Yeah, I like what he's saying. He's still gonna, like, maybe the college game is just a little different for him, and he's still gonna have to work out in front of all these people, draft scouts and whatnot, and put in his time and see what his scores are and et cetera. So we'll see
what he's capable of doing, because he's ready right now. And I don't want everybody to look at what he did for us playing with USC, but I want, like, with his game and the way he's able to stretch the floor, his IQ of the game of basketball, his athleticism, the way that he defends on the perimeter. And, I mean, I just think it was the right move, Molly, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that. I'm not saying it isn't. Perk, I've done it purposefully. I didn't watch him play in high school. Mm-hmm. All I've ever seen of him was highlights, because I knew that the world was going to be incredibly cruel and unfair to him. He wants to play in the NBA with his son. And he was on camera and he's said on numerous occasions that he'd be willing to.
All right, so I actually want to get a little bit of the Undisputed. Damn, I thought I had it pulled up earlier. Let's see. Let me see. Hold on. Let me find that video from earlier real quick. All right, we're skipping an ad, and then we'll get to. I actually did want to watch just a little bit of the Undisputed guys talking about this.
Oh, he's ready for the NBA. I believe he's ready for the NBA right now because he's a very unique player. But it's almost like he was born to complement his father because he can play defense at the NBA level because he's got physicality to him. He's got high IQ thanks to his father, and he knows how to play basketball. And I think he's going to be a really good spot-up three-point shooter. And I don't know what the 27% is about, but I will say this. Just remember, he missed the first 8 games of the year because he had a heart condition, and it was serious business, and God bless him. I think he's okay, and it seemed like he came back and bounced back, but he never quite got in the flow and got his legs underneath him because that was a shocker that he went through, and then the team fell apart, and it never clicked. So he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But
Well, we'll see what happens. I guess now we're gonna kind of jump into like the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight. But between the both of them, they didn't really get into it here. I could kind of look for the part, but y'all can go back and look at this video if you want to. But they kind of get into like LeBron, and I kind of mentioned earlier, like the Lakers doing him a favor to kind of keep him, and it just kind of begs the question of like, what's sports has always been entertainment, but just how much, where's that fine balance and like what people are comfortable with, and as we're gonna see with this Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, what they're calling it's a fight, but what they're calling an exhibition, and you know it's not gonna have any judges. There's not gonna be a winner unless someone gets knocked out. So it's like, more and more is this stuff just becoming for entertainment. Everyone's going to want to see LeBron play with his son because it's like a interesting dynamic. But, you know, are we losing the integrity of what sports are? Or has that integrity always been lost? Or, you know, kind of, what do y'all think? Where's the line? And, you know, this Jake Paul thing is big because it's a draw and because it's a shocking thing. And then the LeBron thing is a draw because it's like one of the greatest ever. And now he's going to play with his son. And it's like a big deal because one of the top 4 or 5 NBA players ever is going to be playing with his son. So it's like, we want to see things that are like the best quality, or we want to see things that are like shocking. And right now we're just going for like pure entertainment value in sports, it seems like. So, okay. Now we're going to kind of go over the Jake Paul, Tyson thing a little bit.
But the eye test tells you, it's going to tell you.
720, do better.
Who's going to win this?
hey, I covered a bunch of Ali fights and got to know Ali. So I go way back in this. I know what it is, and Jake Paul will hold his own against 58-year-old Mike Tyson. How are we going to know who wins unless he gets knocked out? If you want to tell me he's going to get knocked out, I will bet you he will not get knocked out.
What I'm going to tell you is he's going to get punished, and he going to quit, is what I'm going to tell you.
Well, will he? Okay, I'll bet you he won't quit.
He going to quit because he going to get pounded so much, he going to have
all right,
to
I'll bet you he won't quit or get knocked out. If you want to take that, I'll do it right now.
Skip, man.
And the problem is,
Internet, just listen to that. How that sound?
Shut up, bitch!
Internet, just listen to that. How that sound?
He's 58
Even at
years old.
58.
It doesn't matter. He's 58. It doesn't matter, dude.
Look at this.
With last time he did this with Roy Jones Jr., Tyson let up.
He did.
He let up.
I saw it. I watched it.
And that was, what, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
He let up.
Hey, I covered a bunch of Ali fights and got to
I was trying to do something cute, and it made the video go back to where I wasn't trying to watch it. My bad.
know Ali. So I go way back in this. I know what it is, and Jake Paul will hold his own against 58-year-old Mike Tyson. How are we going to know who wins unless he gets knocked out. If you want to tell me he's going to get knocked out, I will bet you he will not get knocked out.
What I'm going to tell you is he's going to get punished, and he going to quit, is what I'm going to tell you.
Well, will he? Okay, I'll bet you he won't quit.
He going to quit because he going to get pounded so much, he going to have to.
All right, I'll bet you he won't quit or get knocked out. If you want to take that, I'll do it right now.
Listen to what Paul Pierce is going to say coming up here.
Skip, man.
And the problem is, it's an exhibition.
No, he ain't going to get knocked out.
No, I don't think he get knocked out.
It's a script. It's going to be a script to this.
He might not get knocked out.
It's going to be a script to this. I think he gets
Okay,
knocked
if there's
down.
a
I bet he gets
script
knocked
to
down. He gets knocked down.
But wait a second. If you say there's a script and he ain't getting knocked down unless he just falls down.
No, he gonna get. It's a script to this.
Okay.
Watch, he gonna get knocked down. One of them gonna get knocked down.
For fun,
No, that's gonna be. It's gonna be an actual punch.
Okay.
It's a script to this though.
I'm just watching Mike Tyson.
Wait, Paul's saying it's rigged. Like it's gonna be.
Y'all think this stuff is rigged? And I mean, you can make the argument with basketball, but a lot of people have made the argument with boxing that it for sure is, and especially with Jake Paul, and like it's all for entertainment. It seems like I was just saying a minute ago. What do y'all think? Get in the chat. Let me know. Paul Pierce is saying this though on a big channel, FS1 owned by Fox and all that kind of stuff. So.
I mean, what else
That's what
is
he's
it?
saying.
I mean, when you cut down the minutes, when you enhance the gloves,
That's what I say.
When you take away the judges, what else could it be? It says.
Oh, and real quick, some stats I had on this fight or exhibition or whatever it is. As Paul was just alluding to, there's no judges. There's 2-minute rounds instead of 3-minute rounds. I'm not sure how many rounds they're going to be in. I don't know if they said in this video either. They're going to be using 16-ounce gloves, and Jake Paul is 9-1. Now, a lot of these people are retired UFC fighters, retired boxers, sports guys that were never fighters, and his one loss was against Tommy Fury, which was probably his most serious boxing opponent that actually had legitimate fighting experience. So, he's been propped up to get some easy dubs and whatnot. Yeah, so.
To me, like it's gonna be fixed.
I mean, what else
That's what
is
he's
it?
saying.
I mean, when you cut down the minutes, when you enhance the gloves,
That's what I say.
When you take away the judges, what else could it be? It says to me, this is scripted.
It might be, but I'm looking at his footwork and stuff like that. You can say whatever you want to say. I'm just watching Mike Tyson move around.
This is promotion, and we going to
I don't care about promotion.
We're tuning in.
I'm just looking at the look. Look, I'm just looking at that.
Okay.
Would you just look at that?
I'm just looking at it.
Who do you think could last the longer? Because I just think Jake's in way better shape than Mike is at 58.
I don't know, man. I can't say if Mike gonna run out of gas or what the case may be, but he certainly looks different than he did when he fought Roy Jones Jr. His body looks different.
Yeah.
His actual movements.
I saw an interview he did whenever it was yesterday, and he said, I don't think I'm going to smoke before this fight. So he said that'll make me irritated and angry. So
you see what I'm saying?
All right.
You see?
Yeah.
As I told you.
Like Paul Pierce like that. I don't know. What do y'all think though? That's a kind of somewhat of a big deal. Paul Pierce saying it. He basically said it could be scripted, but he was saying it with a little conviction because it's TV and to embellish. But his overall tonality, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but his overall thing was I think it could be scripted, because then Skip said, well, if it's scripted, then he tried to press him on what was going to happen. They said, well, I don't know, but he just, he basically was making the argument, I'd be surprised if there wasn't a script. I don't know what it is, but I'd be surprised if there wasn't one. I feel like is the argument he was making. So it's all very interesting. Like I said, a couple of times already, what is entertainment? Or I mean, what's the balance between it being a genuine sport and entertainment, and is it rigged, scripted? Do we even care anymore with these like boxing fights and stuff? So I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think. If y'all have any thoughts on anything I've covered so far. In the beginning, I kind of gave my thoughts on The Walking Dead, Ones Who Live overall. And then I kind of just real quickly begged the question of like if anyone's watching the March Madness and if y'all are fucking with the men's or women's side better or more, and which one y'all think is better this year. And then I kind of got into the Bronny thing a little bit, and just touched on he really isn't shining as much as people would like for him to do, but he's still entering the draft, but he has the potential to enter the player portal or whatever, so he might still go to another team. And we'll see. I keep saying a lot, but these undisputed guys said they think that if he doesn't get drafted, likely the Lakers will just pick him up in free agency. So we'll see. And then, we kind of covered right here the boxing match a little bit and how things are different. Or like they're shorter rounds, lighter gloves, no judges. They're making it easier. I think that was what Paul Pierce was saying. Like, it's making it so easy almost to where, like, they're making it to where there's no loser. So it's just like it's almost like there's no, maybe you don't even have to get conspiratorial with it. It's almost like there's no loser. So this is just a thing to hype up and make money for Tyson and Paul. And Paul wants, we didn't watch far enough of the Undisputed thing, but they said Paul wants to get to a point where he can probably box Canelo. He just wants a bigger and bigger check. And then they said if he gets to that point, even if he wins or loses, he'll probably just retire. So it's like, it's all about eyeballs and numbers and a boxer who's almost 60. So it's like how competitive is this? It's not like Jordan and Bird or Jordan and Magic or like Jordan and Isaiah or even Bird and Isaiah. But it's not like these guys in their prime, LeBron and Curry in their prime, just best you got. It's like, that's what we want to. That's what I want to see as a motherfucking fan. The best against the best, not some guy who's like pretty good versus the best guy when he gets really old. That's what we're seeing with Jake. We got Jake Paul, who's just okay, versus like one of the best ever, just super old. It's like, is it entertaining? Yeah, but this should be like a side note, not the main draw of boxing. And maybe that's a testament to like how boxing has kind of fell off a little bit. But I guess that's a conversation for another day, and maybe one that I'm not like educated enough to have. But I'd be open to having it if like someone else that really fucks with boxing like that came on the show. So, we're down to cover it all here at Where's the Smoke. Let's see. Okay, I guess now we're going to get into a little bit of the red heifer thing. I've been seeing this has been like the most popular conspiracy I've seen over like the past year or two. I feel like, hold on. I feel like this podcast does a good job of breaking it down simply, and then they refer another podcast that they get kind of their information from. So we're kind of riding the camel's back here, no Diddy, but we're gonna listen to what this podcast called Sunday Cool has to say, and then we're gonna jump over to the podcast that they referred me to, which is called Blurry Creatures, and we're gonna listen to them really break down in depth kind of the whole step with this red heifer thing. And the Blurry Creatures podcast, they actually interviewed two gentlemen that were instrumental in helping the Israel rabbis find the heifers. So that one is like a pretty close to the source interview or what have you. So that one's pretty legitimate. So anyway, let's kind of get into this surface level one with Sunday Cool. And let me put them on screen for y'all. And then we can go from there. I kind of want to just try out for shits and giggles. I'm trying to fuck around with soundboard effects. I did try to do one earlier during the video and it like jumped to a different time. But let me just try one while I'm here in the studio with y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Know-It-All.
Y'all let me know how that sounded. If it was too loud, sounded fucked up, or whatnot. Shit. Here's another one.
Shut up, bitch.
There we go. So we'll see how those sound. I'll go back and watch them later after I'm done too, and see how they sound. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to use them when I'm watching a video though. It might. Let's see if I can.
Shut up, bitch.
Nah, see, it affects the time of the video, so I'm just gonna have to keep that in mind. I'm not gonna be able to use it
as soon as the heifer is sacrificed.
With like video reacts, I'm only gonna be able to use it when I'm like chatting in OBS, but that's fine. So let's see what these guys at Sunday Cool had to say. If anyone's tuning in, get in the chat. Let me know how the audio is, video, if there's anything I can fix on the fly real quick, and what y'all are thinking of the topics and whatnot. All right, let's go.
Speaking of fruit by the foot, okay. We have an update on the red heifer.
Did you guys plan that?
No. Yeah,
Wow.
we did. We need to start doing that with. Speaking of the red heifer, your mom is so. I'm just kidding.
All right.
But they have built the altar on the Mount of Olives, overlooking where
city, right?
the temple it was, and what they expressed on the CBS News thing was that I don't think I can say the name without us getting flagged, but hummus.
Okay.
Okay.
We all know what
I was
that.
about to correct you because I'm such a.
No, it's king.
whole
Where
city,
the
right?
dumb.
Dumbass.
But yeah, they have. That was on the CBS News. When this comes out, it would have been a week ago. But they have built the altar on the Mount of Olives, overlooking where
city, right?
the temple it was, and what they expressed on the CBS News thing was that I don't think I can say the name without us getting flagged, but hummus.
He's referring to HAMAS. I think that's how you spell it.
Okay.
You
I don't
know,
know what
I was about to correct
the
you.
people who
'cause I'm
attacked
such
Israel.
No, it's but one of the major reasons what they said, what has come out is one of the major reasons that they attacked in October Israel was because of the red heifers. And it's basically because the Dome of the Rock sits on the Temple Mount right now. And by doing this sacrifice of the red heifers, it is basically an all-out threat of being like, we're going to get rid of the Dome of the Rock.
See, back in the day, I studied a little bit of the revelations of the Bible, and it said that in the end, there was going to be a temple built in this place, and that the Antichrist would stand there. And I don't have all this like check like these people do, but basically the Antichrist would stand on the Temple Mount and declare himself to be God. And I didn't know this whole heifer thing had to be like a prerequisite for that, but apparently that's what I'm finding out, and that's kind of what this conspiracy is revolved around, and that's kind of what they're going over. But it's saying where whatever they just said, the Dome Rock or whatever, where the Muslims, their holy place, that's where everyone wants that place. That's where the Temple Mount needs to be built for the Jews' Messiah to be welcomed in. But before any of that can happen, they have to sacrifice this red heifer within view of that place.
And rebuild the temple
Let's see
now.
what it's called. I keep forgetting.
And by doing this sacrifice of the red heifers, it is basically an all-out threat of being reasons that they attacked in October Israel was because of the red heifers. And it's basically because the Dome of the Rock sits on the Temple Mount right now. And by doing this sacrifice of the red heifers, it is basically an all-out threat of being like, we're going to get rid of the Dome of the Rock and rebuild the temple. And then the hummus Muslims were just like, no way. And I just thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, that's wild, man. That's a whole different narrative.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Go ahead. What?
How does the process work? So it's the sacrifice of a perfect red heifer, and then directly following that, scripturally, we're meant to go and rebuild the temple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So it's the cleansing of the instruments and tools, and the people that are going to build the temple are cleansed with the ashes of the sacrificed red heifer.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Not we are meant.
But I'm going to cover this, I think, in a video that I'm going to play after this. These people that are doing this are going off of something that was done before, and they're just, and I could be wrong, I don't think they were told to do this again. I think this was told, they were told that they had to sacrifice the red heifer and do all the specific stuff with it to rebuild the temple in the past. And they're thinking and assuming that they have to do that again. That's the only way that they can rebuild the temple, which I don't think they were ever told. They're just implying that. And if you have studied your history and stuff with Jesus and the Jews, that was something that came between them in the past, was they were super clung to like old rituals and traditions that some of them were like in the Bible, but some of them were stuff they had come up with on their own. And even the ones that were in the Bible and from God, some of them they were taken too seriously, and they were enforcing them in the wrong spirit. If you're not doing everything with truth and love, they were too focused on the truth and not enough love. They were just like, and it got to a point where they were, Jesus came and said, you're not doing this in the spirit of God and how he would do it. And they wanted to fight him on it. And that's where some of the divide came in. And so it's like, I feel like that's something that's going to bite these people again. They're doing stuff such by the book and such methodical. We have to get this heifer with no red hairs and get its blood and rub its, all this real like strange and like super methodical stuff. They're so focused on being so ritualistic and so traditional that they're missing the love, and I feel like that's leading them astray. And like that's what led them astray when Jesus was here. They couldn't see that he was from God, that he was trying to correct them and be loving and lead everyone to God. They were just like, you're not doing X, Y, and Z by the book. You're out of here. And like one of the big things is they feel like Jesus didn't fulfill all the prophecies he was supposed to, but some people have argued that he's not going to fulfill some of those prophecies until his second coming. And who knows? I'm not super into all that. I've just studied a bit, and I would just think, I can definitely see how there's the Jewish people could have been clinging to tradition too strongly, because I see that now. People so cling strongly to certain traditions, but they're not conducive to like love and becoming closer to God. So it's like, if Jesus came back today as in like someone who is just the best like basically God in human form, would he be down with the traditions you had? It's like, I really feel like that's kind of a lesson to be learned, and something that I can see people having trouble with then and now. So there's my little spiel on that.
You, Andrew, are meant to.
No.
Andrew, please.
It's my 2 weeks.
But yeah, I thought that was really crazy.
It's kind of one of those things where when you were telling me about it for the first time, I was like, I've never heard of this. This is crazy.
Yeah,
and then it's only to see it on CBS. I'm like, that's weird.
So what are the like potential implications of this being enacted?
It's interesting too that the Jewish people not all of them, but a portion of them reject Jesus. But it's like, even by rejecting him as the Messiah, you're almost legitimizing that he was a real person, and in a way. And so like, it's one of those tricky things. But it's like, I don't know. I guess I kind of said all I had to say on that earlier, but it's just interesting to really think about how, he was killed by the Jewish people who were supposed to be God's chosen people and whatnot, and they just can't seem to really learn the most important lessons. It's so interesting how things kind of work and play out. But what I really am trying to say is, like, the Jewish people believe the next prophet or the next big holy person or the next big character is going to be their Messiah, but the next big character like that is going to be the Antichrist, in my estimation, because of how bad things are, and like the spirit of evil that's going on. And like, if whoever you're going to bring about by sacrificing a cow and burning it up and splashing its blood on your hands and being creepy like that, I don't think that's the true loving God that's not the God I serve. Like, that's not the loving, pure God that created things. He doesn't, that's anti. And, anyway, I just, it doesn't sit right with me. It definitely feels like they're worshiping in the Antichrist. And then if it all bears down like that, then I could see, God coming back after that to set things right. But I definitely don't think them crushing the rock, why do I keep forgetting the name of that damn thing? The Dome Rock or whatever it's called, where the Muslims, no disrespect, but like the Muslims worship right now, and where they want to build the third Temple Mount, the Dome Rock or whatever it's called. I forgot where I was going. But like the fact that they're so focused on building there and destroying it and sacrificing a red cow and like all this stuff that seems to be negative, that doesn't seem like stuff that God or Jesus would endorse. And it's like, I just don't see the need for it all. And it's like I was saying earlier, they're so focused on traditions and XYZ and playing out a certain plan more than like being in line with what's the truth, which the truth is you don't need to do all these weird rituals to get great things done. You know what I'm saying? And you don't need to have a bunch of secrets and rituals and killing and sacrifice and all this kind of thing, like have positive things going on. So I'm just questioning what's being brought about by these series of events, and it would be hard for me to believe that a force of good is going to come about. So that leads me to believe that whatever comes about from all this negative is not good. And that's just my 2 cents on it.
Say that one more time.
The implications, what's going to happen.
I think that's with the conflict that's happening right now. I think it's going to reach a point to where there is this is pure speculation.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a point to where the Jerusalem comes under attack, and that's where the Temple Mount is potentially destroyed.
Right.
And then that gives the Israelites, they'll be like, now that we are winning this war or retaliation, no one from Palestine or whatever is allowed in Israel. We're going to rebuild the Temple Mount or the temple.
Yep.
That's just my speculation of what could happen because the conflict is crazy over there right now.
Yeah,
right.
dude.
But with that happening, it's going to be because the Dome of the Rock is completely sacred to the Muslim faith.
Yep. I keep forgetting what it's
And
called.
if that's destroyed, you will not only have every Muslim nation, you'll have every Muslim in the world opposed to Israel. And so it will be, it will be like
a world war in that way.
Well, it will be like the Battle of Armageddon.
They'll be real pissed off, man.
Which talks about all the nations rising up against Israel. But then,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. But then there's, according to end time prophecy stuff, there's going to be a Antichrist who appears, who is at the temple, and there will be a treaty signed with Israel and the nations, a peace treaty, and I think it's like a 7 years of peace between these nations, and then it's just like boom, 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 not good.
And what we don't know is at what point the believers are taken up.
Yeah.
In that 7 years. Some people think they know, but I don't think we know.
No, I don't.
I don't know any of it.
Yeah.
It's all scary.
But this really, by the way, it was Faith and Friction is a podcast. They were on Blurry Creatures. Those were the dudes that were with the rabbis picking out the red heifer, and they hit us up on Instagram. We're gonna I'm gonna talk to them, but it'd be really cool to get them on the podcast.
Or we could go to them and go to Austin and stuff and get some barbecue.
Or that.
Let's do that.
Some comedy shows.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
There's a lot of things we could do in Austin.
Okay, we're going.
Faith and Friction, their podcast. They I haven't listened to much of it, but they seem like really, really cool dudes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But what I was saying with this subject, I came across a video yesterday, and I'm like, yo, it was not a Christian-based video. It was just like a factual, this is what's happened. Have you ever heard of the Rebbe? The Rebbe?
No.
So this man, his name was, I apologize for I might completely butcher him. Lived in Germany, movements, became a mentor and friend of Netanyahu. Said you will become prime minister. Who died in I
don't care about any of the rest of this. Let's see. I think I have notes from this other podcast, the one he was just shouting out. The Blurry Creatures. This is episode 221, The Red Heifer with Faith and Friction. I have some notes from this, so we don't have to listen to the whole thing. We can jump around. Okay, let's go.
Every time they had a red heifer sacrificed, they had ashes of the previous red heifer and they mixed with the new ashes. You know, the Dead Sea Scrolls, they were found in a cave in Qumran in southern Israel in 1940 something. Well, with the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found a lot of other scrolls and artifacts. And one of the scrolls that they found that's on public display now is called the Copper Scroll. I'm sure you've heard this on some of your other situations, but it's a treasure map, and the Copper Scrolls talk about the ashes of the previous red heifer. Now, once again, this ash that they keep are a mixture of all 9 previously. So you go all the way back to Moses, his red heifer, all mixed with these. And the copper should we be doing?
On us here.
Okay, so but now what
talks about it.
Yeah. No,
can y'all just remind me to talk about AI in the Bible later? Because I have to say that, but I'm all over the place. Okay.
Now, what you're saying is the man of sin is going to sit in the temple, and so at this point in time, right now,
we're looking at the temple.
Recording at this recording of this episode, there's no temple. There's the Dome of the Rock sits atop the Temple Mount in Israel, so there's no temple. So. Man of sin can't sit in there.
Exactly. And everything climaxes and points to this temple. I mean, not just in biblical prophecy, in the world today. I mean, it's the most contested spot of land on the entire earth. Even if you're a doubter, you would say, why is this land that's so-called this God of Judaism, Christianity, this God of Abraham, why is the entire world all infatuated with this one little piece of land? And even more than that, on top of this hill, if you will, where that Dome of the Rock is, where the temple was, it is, I mean, the most dramatic place on earth because there's so much friction on every nation, between every religion. It's like, why is everyone, I mean, just looking at the chances of that alone point to some truth there.
Yeah, why do you think people are so captivated by that piece of land?
I thought you had something. Okay.
So far, the Scientologists haven't laid claim to it. So, when we see Tom Cruise out there and John Travolta and they're trying to claim that land, then we know we've come full circle.
Yeah, right. Gotta love Tom. So this whole temple. So we're talking about the red heifers. There is this temple. It can't just be built. Obviously, you have a political situation that has to happen, which is being, shifted around right now. I mean, even things to, Jerusalem being declared by the United States, the most powerful country in the world, as where the embassy of the United States has been moved. We are now declaring that the capital of Israel. I mean, whatever you believe about that, it lines up perfectly as a stepping stone for what has to precede building this temple. I mean, all of this helps lay the groundwork for even a political shift that has to take place, not just a spiritual one. And so the book of Daniel is so accurate. And this is where we're going to have the math and the fun stuff here. In Daniel chapter 9 through 12, he literally has dates, timelines, and accuracy that cannot be debated because it's already history. And we're looking back, hindsight's 2020. In Daniel chapter 9, verses 24 through 26, he actually tells the exact time that Jesus, the Messiah, will come and he will be killed, crucified, and when it will happen. Okay, so this is centuries before Jesus came to the earth 2,000 years ago. And in verse 25 of Daniel 9, he says, "Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the command or the decree to restore and build Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince, comes, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, the wall in troublesome times." And it says, and after the 62 weeks, so you have 7 weeks, then you have 62.
It gets super wordy here and like super complicated, so you can feel free to like come back and research and see what you think about the timeline and everything. But anyway.
So after the 62 weeks, the Messiah shall be cut off, killed, crucified. He will die, is what he's saying, but not for himself, which for a believer, that's really cool because we know Jesus didn't do it for himself. He did it for us. And so he's saying the Messiah is going to come in 7 weeks and then 62 weeks. And these word weeks, to not get too deep in Hebrew, are the words for a certain type of year called the Shemitah year, is that word weeks. And it means every 7th year. So when he says, we say weeks in English, but he really said Shemitahs. There's going to be 7 and 62. That's every 7 years. So if you have 62 Shemitahs or 7, then it's 7 times 7. That's years. So 7 Shemitahs, if one is every 7 years, then it's 49 years until you can have 7 of them. So he's not talking about weeks like we see. He's talking about years. And if you have 69 weeks times 7, this is the coolest thing in the world. He said the Messiah will come 69 weeks of years, and he will be cut off, not for himself, after a decree is made to rebuild Jerusalem. Well, Artaxerxes decreed, this is history, in 444 BC, that the Jews can now go back to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. And just because he's the only one who fits that Daniel chapter 9 deal. So
I thought I was just gonna pause it and went back to the beginning, but like I said, y'all can go. That was around the 40 minutes at 43:30, the 40 to 43:30 minute mark. But it just gets real complicated about a bunch of like math and if Jesus is who he says he is, and it's just a little complicated, honestly. But
executed before 70 AD. So if you just look at it at face value, it's like there is another sign that Jesus is and was the Messiah. And just because he's the only one who fits that Daniel chapter 9 deal. So everything's pointing to this temple, and the temple is destroyed. And now we're 2,000 years later. And supposedly, if Bible prophecy is true, there has to be a third temple for the Antichrist. Everything has to happen. So what is this timeline? And I've got just 9 bullet points here in order that are easy for people to tell and just go, let's check these off the list. So as soon as these start getting checked in the next few years, if it's the end of times, then it will be exactly how the Bible said. And so like the first one is Daniel 9 says there is and I'll save all the scriptures because we'll be here for 3 hours, but there's going to be a peace accord signed by this Antichrist, this false Messiah. And the third temple, they will resume sacrifices, the book of Daniel says. So he goes on to say, hey, there's going to be this temple in the future, even after this time. And we're going to be sacrificing again in the land. And once that happens, the first sacrifice, the Bible says there's 7 years left. That's the final week of Daniel. So every Christian on earth is like, well, those that agree with us. So not every Christian, maybe half of us, who knows, maybe just me. But we believe that, once this, is legal politically, there's a contract signed with all the nations, the Palestinians, everyone agrees to this. Then you have 7 years, the Bible tells us, of the last days. And the Antichrist, halfway through that 7 years, will stand in that temple, just like Daniel said, and claim to be God. And so
that's what we see in Revelation too, right? You see the 7 years.
It's in Revelation, all throughout Scripture. It's pretty well agreed upon in theologians and eschatology. So, but none of that can happen according to Numbers 19 in the Old Covenant until the ashes of a perfect red heifer
who died
and red heifer sacrifice, and those ashes mixed with water are what purify the priesthood, the instruments used in the temple. So they haven't been able to build this temple all these years. You say, well, why are they waiting until now? Well, part of it is finding a perfect, biblically perfect red heifer is not an easy task. Actually, only 9 in 3,000 years have been found. 9 perfect red heifers.
Wow.
And an ancient rabbi named Maimonides said this was kind of his prophecy, not a Christian, an Orthodox rabbi, right at 1,000 years ago.
This is where it gets good into the details about the red heifer and specifics.
Said there's been 9 red heifers because the last one, the 9th one, was 2,000 years ago for the second temple, so they could build that temple. And he said when the 10th red heifer is found, he said it will usher in the time of the Messiah's coming. And that's an Orthodox Jew rabbi. And of course, we've had 9. It's been 1,000 years, and there's still only been 9. And right now, there are 3 candidates. And we'll say here in a second that we were a part of helping them find these red heifers. There were 5, but there's 3 of them that are still qualifying to be this blameless red heifer. And we have about 9 months until, less than 9 months until it's old enough. It has to be 2 years old, the Bible says, before they can use it as the sacrifice. And it's about 1.5 years old. Those 3 are 1.5 years old. They're all from the same time. And we were there here in Texas when they got them. And they're planning, if one of these 3 qualify, in Passover of next year.
By the way, this episode was released February 15th of this year, but based on things they can say, it seemed like it was recorded at the end of last year, and because they keep saying these heifers are 1.5 years old this time, but in about 6 months, spring 2024, they'll be 2 years. So it makes it seem like even though it was dropped February 15th of this year, it makes it seem like it was recorded sometime last year because obviously spring 2024 is right now, April. So it definitely seems like now could be around the time that they're looking to sacrifice one of these heifers to start fulfilling the prophecy.
So this is Passover 2024, to have this sacrifice broadcast live around the world. And even the government of Israel.
Shout out to these two podcasts that I'm using to get some of these details and piggyback off of. I put both of their links to the episodes that I'm watching in the description if you want to go check them out for yourself. So go ahead and do that if you so wish.
Was now involved because they said if this happens, we're going to have millions of people coming to see this, the security. I mean, there's so much planning that's already happening, hoping that one of these three will be the 10th one in 3,000 years.
A couple questions. So how do you guys get involved? And then what is the qualification process? I know that there's a certain age that these things have to be in the sacrificial range, but I'll let you guys answer the question.
Yeah.
But for far as qualifying, then how do you all get in? Two guys from Texas.
Well, so it's funny, and obviously Jason interject and fill
that interviewer is kind of crooked. I love him.
Gaps in as we talk about it. But even Luke, when we talked, just that something that, especially
y'all get in the comments and let me know what y'all think of the topics I've covered tonight so far, and anything I'm missing that's big in the news or what you want to hear about.
If you're Christian, and even if you're not, essentially will have a global impact in different ways, but affect 8 billion people or so. And the fact that these were found in North Texas, probably an hour or so from where we are. And as Jason mentioned earlier, the guy, the blurry prophet, we call him, Robert Maweri, involved in a lot of awesome things regarding Israel and regarding what God's doing here just on the earth in general. And so they had some rabbis that were already on their way here in search of these red heifers. We're going to go to a Red Angus farm. And then apparently the owner of the farm, the original farm they were going to go to, found out why they were coming and was like, you know what? I don't want to be involved in that. I don't know what. Maybe he thought they were just coming to get some good steaks or something. But he was like, you know what? I'm not trying to be a part of anything like weird or that I don't know about. And so, man, I don't know how many, it was days though, but I don't know how many days.
They were already preparing on coming. I don't know if they were en route or not.
I'm pretty sure
backed
they
out
were
at the last moment.
And so
this
there's
whole
these
big thing had been planned.
Yeah. And so there's these rabbis coming to essentially observe, and, without mark or without blemish, a red heifer that's not tagged, completely red, like not one single white hair on it. And so they're coming to observe these red heifers and these red Angus. And at this point, there's not a farm. Like there's no, the person that was going to have it backed out, or like who in the world has a red Angus farm that's able to do it. And so Jason, your dad actually had a really good friend. Go ahead.
Well, the guy I was telling you about earlier, the blurry prophet, he contacted me and said, hey, before the guy canceled the first venture, and he said, hey, I want you to go with me. We're going to go meet these rabbis, ranch in West Texas, and they're coming to look for the red heifer. Of course, by this time, I'm all in. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I could be in the middle of like some end time, prophecy or something. I said, yes, I'll be there. And so I was so fired up about that.
By the way, I watched the 30 minutes or so that I skipped to get to this point, and maybe I skipped over some conversation where they described it better, but I think they do a terrible job of describing how they really got in touch with these people, but whatever.
That I actually, of all people, I was, my dad and I like to play golf together a lot. And so I called him the day before we were playing. I was like, I got to tell you what happened. I was just invited to fulfill biblical prophecy, meet these rabbis, to look at red heifers in West Texas. And he's like, oh, that's so cool. So he called one of his best friends in the world, who I did not know, him and his brother raised Red Angus outside of Dallas, not far from Dallas.
Can I ask real quick, like a Red Angus, red heifer, is that a rare? I mean, I don't know anything about this. Are they rare?
No, very common. Very common.
Very common. But
Rarity
having one without
perfect
being perfect.
Not okay. I mean, not all red hairs. I think the rabbis translate is not more than one hair that's not red. One hair on the entire body that's not red. For someone like me, that's not a big deal. But for a cow, that's rare, you know?
Let me ask another dumb question then. Are there rabbis who are tasked with this and have been, and they're looking at all the red heifers across the world and have been for generations?
They've been looking for a while. Yeah, I mean, if you remember like 8 or 10 years ago, there was a big news story that broke worldwide of they think they found a red heifer. They were raising them in Israel. They've been trying to raise them in Israel to have them there, but they've all been disqualified just within a few months a lot of times because, I mean, the rarity of a perfect all red calf, and not just the hair, but can't have any defects, can't have one leg, you know, short than the other. It can't have any kind of, never had a yoke put on it. You can't even lean on them. I mean, there's so many details. Yeah, that it's almost impossible, really.
It's like a Kobe beef, but
exactly. They massage them in beer. Exactly. Yeah.
Them Wagyu red heifers.
Nate is the in-house expert on all things ginger. So I would think that he maybe knew about, you know, the perfect ginger cows, but I think this is new to you too, pal.
Oh yeah.
You don't have exaggerating. There are other podcasts. They're on interviews. His brother really does most of the ranching and pre-scan to make sure we're not wasting their time. And you can pretty much tell.
My wife and we
talk about the context and the background.
Sitting next to his name is Pastor Robert Mawiri, our Blurry Prophet there, and I'm sitting next to him. And on the other side of me is the closest thing to a modern day, like real Indiana Jones, man, like a biblical archaeologist that is literally living. I mean, that was my favorite. Indiana Jones is like at the top of my list of like movies, you know, just the whole trilogy, the 80s. And so I'm like, this is my hero. He's living it. Thanks. Everything but the whip, man. So I'm just sitting next to him and he starts telling me about just all of these discoveries and just some of the things that even my pastor hidden stuff, and I'm like, I think
we get our hats, we get our tinfoil hats.
Look, see right there, we won't know. It should we be doing clearly, and then once we know that, it's like.
And I do think you have a great point. Like
whatever, they're fucking rambling too much. I went back to the beginning to see if he could explain how he got tied in with these people better, but whatever, dude.
Gave the thumbs up and was like, this qualifies. I mean, they were examining they were like, show us the mom.
They're talking about when I'm gonna go back a little bit. They're talking about when the rabbis got to the farm and started looking at the heifers and everything.
It has to be, the Bible says 2 years old to be might have this red heifer. So that was and I'll sell it to you. And they said no, the Bible. And by the time that they got here, there were a few, I think, red heifer, and then it's rabbis to come, and they kind of sent. And when we had already looked at all of those on this new ranch before, wouldn't it be cool if we're in the
who raises red
that's
Angus Nate is the are there rabbis who are
red heifers in West Texas?
Go ahead.
Well, the guy I was telling you about earlier, the Blurry Prophet, he contacted me and said, hey, before the guy canceled the first venture, and he said, hey, I want you to go with me. We're going to go meet these rabbis, ranch in West Texas, and they're coming to look for the red heifer. Of course, by this time, I'm all in. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I could be in the middle of like some end time, you know, prophecy or something. I said, yes, I'll be there. And so I was so fired up about that. I actually, of all people, I was, my dad and I like to play golf together a lot. And so I called him the day before we were playing. It's like, I got to tell you what happened. I was just invited to fulfill biblical prophecy, meet these rabbis, to look at red heifers in West Texas. And he's like, oh, that's so cool. So he called one of his best friends in the world, who I did not know. Him and his brother raised red Angus outside of Dallas, not far from Dallas.
Can I ask real quick, like a red Angus, red heifer, is that a rare? I mean, I don't know anything about this. Are they rare?
No, very common. Very common.
But
Rarity
having one without
perfect
being perfect.
Not. Okay. I mean, not all red hairs. I think the rabbis translate is not more than one hair that's not red. One hair on the entire body that's not red. Hair. For someone like me, that's not a big deal. But for a cow, that's rare, you know?
Let me ask another dumb question then. Are there rabbis who are tasked with this and have been, and they're looking at all the red heifers across the world and have been for generations?
They've been looking for a while. Yeah, I mean, if you remember like 8 or 10 years ago, there was a big news story that broke worldwide of they think they found a red heifer. They were raising them in Israel. They've been trying to raise them in Israel to have them there, but they've all been disqualified just within a few months a lot of times because, I mean, the rarity of a perfect all red calf, and not just the hair, but can't have any defects, can't have one leg, shorter than the other. It can't have any kind of, never had a yoke put on it. You can't even lean on them. I mean, there's so many details. Yeah, that it's almost impossible, really.
So yeah, like they were saying, they have to have all red hair. They can only have like one, if that, non-red hair. No blemish. Can't have ever been worked. Have to be a heifer and 2 years old, and there might be one or two other, but those are the main requirements.
It's like a Kobe beef, but
exactly. They massage them in beer.
Yeah. Them Wagyu red heifers.
Nate is the in-house expert on all things ginger, so I would think that he maybe knew about.
I'm not gonna go over this too much longer because I know it gets kind of meticulous and boring, but I just want to go to kind of prove the point of how meticulous and how specific they go and what links they go to kind of prove my point earlier, what I was saying about like these people that believe this specific set of Jewish people, they tend to value certain set of like rituals and traditions and sticking to those to a T more than what is obviously true and real and with love. And like they cling too strongly to tradition even when they shouldn't. And that's kind of what came between them and Jesus. So
the perfect ginge cows, but I think this is new to you too, pal.
Oh yeah.
You don't have white in your beard though, so I mean, you're good.
I do. I'm a blemish. I'm a blemish.
Right? A blemish ginge. Yes.
We just dye it. We just dye it. Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, it's definitely rare.
So let me recap. So these rabbis are coming out to look at some red Angus in Texas. They get stonewalled by a rancher who doesn't want to be involved with this because it's a little different to say the least. And you end up getting connected with another rancher. This is how you guys get involved. Who raises red Angus?
Well, that's the rare chance.
Right.
Yes, that he called his friend who happened to raise red Angus, because when I told him that, we were still going to this first rancher.
Right.
So after I told him that, he called his friend, and his friend was like, "Why aren't they coming out here, man? Like we have red Angus." Well, little did I know that this first rancher was going to cancel the same day that I found out. So I got a call back saying, "Never mind, it's been canceled. Now we can't just
figure it out.
Guys up. We got to find something." Yeah. And all of a sudden, it's like already we had the place to go, because now one of my dad's closest friends, who he just shared, because he was like, "Man, how cool is this?" He said he and his brother raise them, and I'm not exaggerating. There are other podcasts. They're on interviews. His brother really does most of the ranching, and his brother 35 years ago decided to raise red Angus. He chose red Angus because he was already wanting to be in the cattle business, because of the red heifer prophecy. And he even said to his brother, "Wouldn't it be cool if we're in the last days and maybe one of our red Angus could be like the red heifer one day?" Almost kind of like way out there, but I can pick any cattle. Let's do red Angus just in case. Wow. 35 years earlier. Okay. So everything is just
I wish this episode was video. Maybe it is if you have Spotify or whatever, but I don't.
From the point, like, this is weird. Okay, this is the blurriest thing I've seen in a long time. So like, what in the world? Like, everything's lining up. So we just kind of told the rabbi, it's kind of like, oh, like we didn't skip a beat. Like, hey, we're gonna switch location. Don't worry, we already had it planned. Yeah, just go ahead and come on. I mean, we were freaking out, sweating bullets, but it was like everything fit. And so they came out to that ranch, and man, maybe on another time I'll tell you some crazy stories about how the calves that were born, these red heifers, none of them qualified when we looked at them. Okay, here's the 5-second version. We went and did a pre-scan to make sure we're not wasting their time. And you can pretty much tell. I mean, you can look through their hairs, and at least there's not one with a big white birthmark. We're like, okay, are there? None of them qualified.
Yeah.
And when we had already looked at all of those on this new ranch, before we left, we were all talking. We're like, man, none of these qualify. One gave birth in the field out there while we were visiting, trying to look for one. And when it was born, at that moment, we went and looked at it, and that one had that we could tell, no white hairs, and it was like, at least there's one that will qualify.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's crazy that someone canceled, and then that same day they had another guy, and even though none of them were on point, then they had one that birthed one while they were there scouting that was.
That's
so
crazy.
We said, hey, just come for this one. I don't know if it'll stay qualified, but we didn't think there were any. Now there's one. So we go out there, and I'm sitting in the house of this guy, of the rancher, and we're waiting on these rabbis to come. And they kind of send out their kind of like,
it's like the
levels.
It's like the JV rabbis.
Yeah,
JV rabbis. Before the big guys come out, it's like, make sure we're not wasting our time. You go.
Like, here comes the scout team. Put the scout team out there. Yeah.
And they didn't want us to tell anybody because they didn't want to look foolish of like, we think we found a red heifer. And then it's another one of those stories where it's like news cycle. Never mind, it's not one. So we had to keep it under wraps until they were ready to release all this, which people have probably all heard. I mean, it's been all over the world. So I'm sitting in the living room, and this is the craziest part.
This is wild.
So the rabbis get there, and we're getting ready to go look at this red heifer. And by the time that they got here, there were a few, I think there were like 2 or 3 more that had been born in that gap of those days, because he has a huge herd. And so the rabbi says, I don't know why I'm telling y'all this, but let me just tell you kind of like the backstory of the last time we, as the Jews, found the 9th red heifer. And he goes, it was 2,000 years ago. And so we're all just kind of like listening to story time with the rabbi, and he's like,
I'm going to skip ahead because I just wanted y'all to hear the part about how they found the ranch the very day and stuff. I still wish I could find the part about how he got tied in with the rabbis.
Where that you've never gone and captured, like Jason said,
in the last days. And the Bible doesn't leave it to guesswork. Man,
you've been, and I'll let him explain it in a second, but you've been like called to do some of this stuff, and you're actually in this and pursuing. Okay.
Talking about in verse 1, it says concern.
We just be like, hey, and it's right. I think those
skeptical
from your point of view.
100 years earlier.
That seems to slave humanity.
Just like you were saying, Luke, the chances of this happening are too. Well, that word coming up says
it's a little short.
He talks about the mark of the beast.
You've heard these terms. There's script.
Piece of land, and even more. He literally, as we know, Jesus didn't do it. And Daniel said it will be 69 weeks of years, which is 483 years after he says that Messiah.
Luke, we talked, and it do have to happen in order.
Writing itself, it's
Copper Scroll from
because this is the teacher, the guy I know. So, but you're a musician. You have an online marketing company. You're starting to do some media thing.
Like Jason said earlier, known him for about 13 years now. And it was interesting. It's a more common conversation now. You'll hear so talk about
man.
And and I remember just really being interested in that stuff and almost like feeling called to that. And before any of the stuff that we're going to get into even began to transpire, just like, man, like talk about
going on to this world and just what lose people here. But man, it started, I would say 7 years ago, I was reunited with a pastor of mine that was a pastor when I was a child. And he, we'll just call him the Blurry Prophet today. And he really is, though, man. Just like, just if there's ever if you can picture a modern day biblical prophet, sitting next to, his name is Pastor Robert Mawiri, worldwide, that are going to change the perspective. And he starts telling about just all of these discoveries and some things that maybe off air we can share, but I don't even think I should share on the air quite yet, but things that are about to even come out worldwide that are going to change the perspective and just shift the mentality of just the reality and the truth of the biblical accuracy, just from a historical, archaeological perspective.
I've heard to be wary of things like that are going to come out real new, that are going to change perspective on biblical theory.
That they have discovered that's going to be coming out soon. And
that is bro, that is a teaser.
Bro, I know. Yeah, I will say some. We'll say some of it. Okay. I'll tell you guys afterwards because I want to live
join us next
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to keep you around. So we can do that. We'll do it in the skiff. We'll do it in the skiff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they just start talking, and I'm just in between these two geniuses, and just and I would say I was not in a season where I thought,
is he going to get to the point of how he gets in touch with the rabbis?
I would just label everybody conspiracy theorists at that point. It's like many times this is where exactly what to go with it. So we start talking about all of it, and man, it just started sparking thoughts and hidden stuff. And I'm like, man,
shout out to Nick.
Says that
biggest,
and they're like, why are y'all so worried about it? We're not supposed to know that.
Yeah, I think we'll get our hats. We'll get our tinfoil hats on. Just wait for it. Yeah.
You're ready.
Yeah.
We didn't want to tell you we already had that cult, but we were talking about in verse 1, it says, should we be doing? Where it's like there's more to life than
at the markers, right, in scripture, and seeing where
so table.
time in the world with it. So
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
and
true, though, because
I would add one thing to that to really pay attention.
what the book of Revelation said. And
Mhm.
the public
We're given these keys to destroy.
has
pyramids and structures.
in heaven it does say. Christians and movies, the anti.
It was a little shorter.
Why I said what I said a little while. Still skeptical of.
Or I guess you could have tattooed every.
I think the
Like, listen, let's talk about these.
You're driving.
Whatever. He's terrible at saying that. Whatever.
And about since their youth, as they're in like their
2000
schools,
years,
and
man, yeah.
and they're just like, what? Like, is this? It approves this, and they're. I mean, the whole atmosphere just shifts to like celebratory, and they're like, man, we have them, and people are already frantically like, how are we going to get them to
This is back when they're at the farm, seeing that, you know.
Israel? What are we going to do? How are we going to? And a funny part, which we actually got to take a video of this guy. So the ranch hand for that ranch was probably like a 20-year-old kid, 19, 20-year-old kid. And he doesn't care nothing about none of this stuff. He's just a guy that works the farm, right? And so he's sitting there and we go up to him. We're like, how do you feel? They're going up to him like, hey, put these red heifers in another pen. Don't let anything touch them. Don't pin their ears. Don't let them roughhouse with each other. Don't put them with the other. All these extensive instructions to protect these red heifers. And we ask him afterwards, like, how do you feel? He's like, man, it's pretty crazy stuff. You know, thick Southern accent.
Just glad to be there. It's like, wouldn't they already known? Because if any of that stuff was already done to them, they would be disqualified. Come on now.
Yeah, like, this is pretty crazy stuff. I'm just doing what I'm told. I'm going to do what I can. It's pretty cool to be a part of something that's bigger than me. And so it was.
Shut up, bitch.
Yeah, it was definitely a surreal thing.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like I'm picturing like Jimmy from Yellowstone, and he's just like, I just do what I'm told.
That
right?
is perfect. That's even looks like me. Yeah. Exactly.
There's 4 qualifying factors, right, for them to this thing to qualify, right? It has to be. I was doing a little like Joe Rogan here, kind of googling, but
Joe Rogan. We'll listen to this, the qualifications, and then we'll kind of wrap up.
it has to be perfect in its redness, as you said. Even 2 hairs of any other color will disqualify it. Even his hoofs must be red. It has to be 3 to 4 years old. It must be free of any kind of internal, external defect
it's
or
not 3,
blemish.
it's over 2. So the way they count, it's the 3rd year.
And it can't be.
Third quarter of the NCAA Iowa UConn game. It's 39-37. Shit, I'm gonna wrap this up and maybe catch the 4th quarter of that shit. It looks pretty good. Just a little update on the NCAA tournament for y'all.
So the way we would count is
Gotcha.
2 years since they were born.
It cannot be used for any type of physical labor or never placed under the yoke. That's probably they're hiding it, right? Because couldn't somebody just go and like throw a rope around its neck and be like, "Hey, pull this," and then you're disqualified?
I guess
that'd be pretty messed up.
They had them under like protection.
Which is why it's like
protective custody.
Like their locations,
Service.
their locations and stuff are so secretive because of those reasons. And so it's like you just can't pull up to Israel as a tourist and be like, "Hey, can I see the red heifers?" And all of a sudden,
I'm not ready for Jesus to come back. Disqualified.
Somebody throwing knives at him or something, like
ruin the whole plan.
But so talking about this now, so let's just red heifers found their qualifying to be sacrificed at 2 years. We're coming up on that at the end of this year. People thinking Passover is the goal. So when that happens, then what?
Yeah.
Or somebody listening to us like, okay, boom, this happens. If they do,
So you got red cows. Yeah, you got these red cows.
We got these red cows.
Yeah.
Sacrifice like on from that moment on. Then what?
Yeah.
What should I be looking for? What should I be expecting? What comes next?
Well, the red heifer has to be sacrificed within eyesight of the eastern gate, where the Dome of the Rock is, if you will, but where the temple once stood, the second temple, and that's on top of the Mount of Olives. Which, like, if you're a Christian, it's pretty cool symbology because, like, Jesus, the last sacrifice, the red heifer on the Mount of Olives, Jesus on the Mount of Olives, and they actually have procured it, and they now own the acreage on top of the Mount of Olives.
See, they already own the land they need. They own the heifer.
Rabbis, and they already have everything set to be able to do this. And they don't have to have any political changes or anything to sacrifice a red heifer other than the perfect red heifer. And so if one of these,
so they don't need they don't need the
qualifies,
temple. They don't need the temple. Then they don't need to have the temple.
no, you
built?
have to have this before the temple. This,
Oh, so this okay. Let me. So this
the
is just
first
me.
domino of all the prophecy stuff.
So once they have to be able to. There has to be a red heifer sacrificed, and then they can rebuild the temple. Is that the process?
Yes.
I think you might have said that, and I'm like, I was
Because
thinking
it
this was part of the temple
purifies, according to
sacrifice.
Scripture, all the stuff that be used in the temple, the high priest, the utensils of the temple. So they can't be
okay.
ceremonially clean until they have the ashes of a red heifer, which it's taken 2,000 years to find. Yeah.
Which is one of those divine decrees. It's a chuckle.
So they are
Is that
ready
right?
to do it. Passover 2024 of next year. There's 3 of them out of the 5 that are still perfectly qualified. So that's
awesome.
there's
Okay.
the chance of that. Yeah. So
So
they're
I-
kind of
so this is making sense. This is what I was because I was thinking, man, if they got to figure out how to get the Dome of the Rock and knock it down and build the temple in the next few months. So
Yeah.
no, this is
If you believe in God and everything's happened for a reason, then it's almost like he didn't give them the heifer till now because he's almost letting them do this crooked thing. If they're gonna do it, then let them do it. But it's interesting. Everything happens for a reason, I guess.
as you say, this is the domino that knocks the rest of them down.
It starts
Okay.
the whole process. So, I mean, after that, they now at least ceremonially can build the 3rd temple. And of course, just imagine like sacrificing animals live around the world. Just think of the
That's
chaos
crazy.
that can cause. I mean,
Bro, if they sacrifice this animal live, I would definitely go live to react to that. That would be crazy.
just with,
PETA.
PETA, yeah, you have all
Yeah.
these things. I mean, it's going to shake. The whole world is paying attention to that small piece of land. And it's about to get more heightened than you've ever seen before if this actually happens.
All right, so after this, they kind of go into what happens after the sacrifice and what to look for, but it's basically them building the temple on the damn, I keep forgetting the Dome Rock place. No disrespect, I keep forgetting what it's called, but they have to sacrifice the heifer within eyesight of that, and then they're gonna tear it down and build the 3rd Temple Mount, and then supposedly the Messiah is gonna get up there and proclaim to be God, and that's, according to Christians, the Antichrist, and according to Muslims too, apparently. So, let's see. I had one more video that was a Muslim's perspective on it that kind of ties it all together, and then maybe we'll get up out of here.
لخرافة دينية مقيتة مصممة للعدوان على مشاعر أمة كاملة.
During a speech commemorating the 100th day of the Gaza conflict, Hamas spokesperson Abu Ubaidah made a surprising yet revealing statement that garnered little attention. Among the reasons given for the October 7th massacre in Israel, he mentioned Zionists bringing red cows to the Holy Land. The Al-Aqsa Mosque holds immense religious significance for Muslims worldwide, and any perceived violation of its sanctity would undoubtedly provoke strong reactions. In their effort to rebuild the temple, devoted believers refer to the Book of Numbers, chapter 19. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron,
See, but this is what I was talking about earlier. They're referring to something that he told them to do in the past, and they're trying to do it again, thinking they're going to get a similar result, and that not necessarily might
This
be
is a
true.
requirement of the law that the Lord has commanded. Tell the Israelites to bring you a red heifer without defect or blemish, and that has never been under a yoke. Give it to Eleazar the priest. It is to be taken outside the camp and slaughtered in his presence. Then Eleazar the priest is to take some of its blood on his finger and sprinkle it 7 times toward the front of the tent of meeting. While he watches, the heifer is to be burned.
That's kind of weirdo shit, honestly.
Its hide, flesh, blood, and intestines. The priest is to take some cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet wool and throw them onto the burning heifer. After that, the priest must wash his clothes and bathe himself with water. Ubaidah emphasized that the ritual must be conducted facing the exact location where the historic Second Temple once stood, until its destruction by the Romans in 70 AD. Since the time of Moses, only 9 such sacrifices have been performed. According to the rabbis, when the cows are sacrificed, they will enter the stage of Dajjal, or their awaited Messiah. Muslims will see through their deception and lies and won't be manipulated. In Islam, the Dajjal will claim to be the Messiah and
See, this is similar to what the Bible and Christians believe right here.
Perform miraculous feats to deceive people into following him. However, his true nature as a false prophet will be revealed to believers through various signs and warnings provided by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The emergence of the Dajjal is seen as a significant event signaling the end times and the coming of Judgment Day in Islam. Muslims are advised to seek refuge in Allah and remain steadfast in their faith to protect themselves from the deception of the Dajjal. The red cows are 5 red Angus heifers brought in from Texas in September 2022, facilitated by a collaborative effort between a Christian ministry named B'nai Israel and the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. Since last year, one of them has been disqualified, leaving 4 remaining. For some Jews and Christians, these animals hold significance as they are believed to play a crucial role in the reconstruction of the ancient Jewish temple in Jerusalem and in heralding the arrival of the Messiah. They believe that only with that offering and the destruction of Al-Aqsa Mosque can the temple rise again. Sacrificing red heifers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque would deeply offend Muslims. The mosque is one of the holiest sites in Islam, and any non-Islamic rituals or practices conducted within its premises would be seen as a desecration of the sacred space.
There you go. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think I'm going to try to do a podcast tomorrow, and I might cover that topic a little bit more in depth with my homie. But yeah, that's definitely a conspiracy theory that I've seen popping over the last year and a half. And it's definitely got some legitimacy, and who knows how it'll all play out. So, you know, it's one of those things where whether or not you believe in the Bible or whatever, there's certain people that do, and they're going to try to play out things in it. It's kind of alarming, and I'm definitely paying attention, and it's got my eyes whenever certain things pop up. So, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap the stream there. Been going for about an hour and a half. You know, so y'all, if y'all see this later on, y'all get in the comments. Let me know what y'all think about the topics. Let me know the quality of the video, the quality of the sound, if I lagged out any, if anything could have fine-tuned. I always appreciate feedback. Yeah, y'all like, comment, subscribe. We're going to have more guests coming up soon. I'm going to start lining up and scheduling people. And, yeah, just kind of, I feel like at the end of last year, the beginning of this year, we had a lot of momentum. And then I kind of got sick and scheduling changed, and Josh is not able to really do episodes as much anymore. And just going through some changes. But now I kind of want to get started again, or kind of just ramp it up again, so to speak. And get some real good guests on, get some real solid topics, and do some good research and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, y'all let me know what y'all think about the questions I asked earlier. And y'all let me know what topics y'all want to see me discuss in the future. You know, I'm always open for suggestions. And I guess I'm going to get out of here and watch the end of that women's game. So this is LOG from where